Hi. Okay, I'm going to try to film this. I'm having to film at a very weird angle. I don't know if you can see my face. Be aware that I might be attaching more than one video for this lesson. It's the very, very end of April. It's towards the end of the final 6 weeks. And unfortunately, this is when we're just now working really from some still life. Normally we would do this earlier in the year, but because of COVID and online learning and all kinds of other craziness, I had to really change stuff around, okay? So my setup is not fancy, but hopefully you'll be able to see roughly what we're doing, okay? Also, like I mentioned, I think a second ago, there might be more than one video related to this assignment, so just be sure that you watch anything that I attach in resources, okay? So what I have here is a still life arrangement that was put together using a box lid. These are things that were in the classroom or things that were made out of paper, okay? And keep in mind that one of the things you can do this lesson is you can draw all of, or at least a large portion of the setup. The lighting is going to help with making things look more three-dimensional when you shade and you use value and different materials in your drawing. The other thing you can do is, and what I'm trying to teach students, is how you can take any kind of still life arrangement but use it as almost like a base layer to change things on it or add to it. Like I could technically, instead of this just being kind of this abstract arrangement of things, I could turn parts of this into something else, like buildings, okay, or other things that are flying through the sky. There's other stuff you can do with a still life other than just feeling like you're copying it, okay? The first method I'm showing is how to do what I call drawing dirty, okay? Some people call it drawing in reverse or just drawing with an eraser, but you are mainly going to be using any kind of eraser for your drawing. You start with a very dirty surface. I will also have in the lesson like some basic size requirements. You do not at all have to have a drawing board. You do not at all have to tape off your edges. I'm just doing this so I have a clean surface when I'm done. But the first thing you do is you take one of the materials you're going to need, which is charcoal, preferably the soft charcoal, and you rub it, barely touching the paper, in a circular motion. You're not pressing hard. You're not scrubbing all over the place because you want to keep this kind of light. Then instead of just your bare fingertips, with charcoal and with soft pastels, you can use your fingertips. I think it's generally a little bit better to use either some blending tortillons or wrap paper towel on your fingertips, but you can do some of that method. Now, if you were drawing all the time in charcoal or all the time in soft pastel, then you definitely would want to be like wearing gloves and using other things to blend with. But if it's occasional, I think that's fine for the type of materials you're using, which is like student grade materials, okay? So you'll be rubbing with the soft charcoal. You'll be using some paper towel wrapped around your fingertips. You go in a circular motion. You're not power scrubbing the paper. You don't want it to flake and rip. And you just want to start with kind of a dirty, kind of a gray surface, okay? You're also going to be using some chalk, colored chalk, or soft pastels, okay? And then in probably one of the other videos, I'll be showing how to draw with some other materials and kind of tackle this still life, all of it or part of it, in a different way, okay? So let me double check my angle real quick. Okay, so I'll be showing the still life and I'll be showing the drawing from time to time, okay? And I'll also be checking that you're getting a couple of good views. I'm not gonna do the entire drawing while I'm videoing. I'm just gonna at least start it to show you what to do, okay? So first, I'm gonna make sure I have some sort of lighting on whatever my still life setup is so I can see some really good light areas and some really good shadows and some dark areas, okay? So it's not all the same value, all the same lightness or darkness, because that would make my drawing look really flat. It would make my objects look flat, okay? Now, the next thing I'm doing is, taking my eraser. It could be a pencil eraser for smaller areas, or I've just cut a white or a pink eraser. This is what my face-to-face students were using. And I'm going to pick an area to start with, okay? And actually, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to start with the cube, okay? So the item that looks very square in your view and my view is a three-dimensional cube that was actually made out of thin cardboard paper, okay? So if you see, I'm just barely erasing, and I'm taking out some lines to start that cube with my eraser, okay? And keep in mind that this paper is never going to be sparkling clean again, okay? You just want to erase enough that you can see outlines or you can see a light value, okay? All right, so once I have that to start with, okay, and you can see it's over in this area, okay? Once I have that, then I'm going to look at what else is angled off of it, what I can actually see of the cube. And since it is a cube, I'm keeping in mind that the lines are parallel. The lines are running this direction, the lines are running this direction, okay? So if you end up working from my still life, okay, which will be one of your options in your assignment, or something else, just know that I'm going to want to see what you're working from, and also I'm going to look that you were paying attention to just a couple of details, that certain angles and certain things are going a certain direction, all right? Now, what I told my face-to-face students is this is an ultimate, what I call like a lazy drawing method. Maybe it doesn't seem lazy to you, but to me it does, because believe it or not, you've already done some of your shading in this drawing and you haven't even really drawn anything yet, because this is providing like your basic kind of a gray tone to work off of, okay? What the eraser is doing is it's pulling your lightest values. So you can see I'm just erasing in my view, okay, where I'm sitting, what things are looking really light, okay? And it might look a tiny bit different with what you're watching right now, but this is a light area, how the light's hitting it, and this area is kind of dark, okay? Now, I'm looking at, before I do any more shading or anything into this, I'm gonna look at the next object that I'm working from, and I'm gonna compare the sizes. So the way these little plastic cups are turned, I get this oval, and I get these little angles here of these little cups that have been turned downwards and are connected together. And I've angled and taped them in a way in my still life that they look kind of like they're toppling over. I wanted this still life to actually not look very still. I wanted it to have a little bit of movement to it, okay? So you can see I'm not erasing hard. I'm not trying to scrub into the paper, okay? And I'm looking at the still life and figuring out where are my lightest things, what do I need to lift out with an eraser, okay? And by the way, if you ever need a really good hard edge on an eraser, just take a pair of scissors, cut your eraser into a couple pieces, and you can get some good corners and some good edges to work from. Just cut the eraser up into 4 pieces to start with, and that gives you some good edges to work from, okay? So I'm lifting this out. Okay, so I'm comparing sizes, and then I'm going to work my way down, and I would start to add more of the cups onto here. So I'm looking at what do I actually see, okay? Again, I'm not going to do the entire drawing in this video. I'll show kind of a finished product later on, but you're not going to have to sit and watch me draw this entire thing. Okay, so that's part of what I have right now, okay? And then before I would maybe go on and finish this, I could finish this part up, let it go off the page. I'm, of course, going to make sure that with my first object, I have some of my other objects in here, okay? So let things go off the page. Don't feel like you're trying to cram everything into your drawing, okay? So I'm looking at how large is this, okay, in the still life to this. And then I'm looking at how is the light hitting that, in this case, this cylinder. Okay, it's actually a tube, but the tube is a cylinder. Okay, and then I can start to include what's in the background, or this could be a place where I change things that are in the background, okay? Right now, I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to put that background pattern in or change it to something else, because I want to demonstrate some of the other things. So before I go any further, I'm just going to show you how to go back into the drawing with the charcoal, okay, to start to shade and add value and make things look more three-dimensional. So you can see I'm barely touching the paper, and look at how dark that already is. Okay, you can see that even from this angle. All right, and then I'm looking at, I am going to show that there's a surface in the background. I don't know yet if I'm going to use that pattern that's back there or something else, but I am going to show that there's something back there and that there's these cast shadows. And the cast shadows are the shadows from any objects, anything that you're working from, that because of the light source, there's a shadow cast onto the background space, any kind of solid space, or anything that the objects are sitting on, okay? So this is some of that cast shadow right next to the cube, okay? All right. There's also a cast shadow from the cube onto the cups here. All right. The other thing I'm going to mention before I put another little film up going further into this drawing is the use of artistic license, okay? And I talked about this with my face-to-face students, but for me, artistic license is where you put marks or other things in your drawing or painting or whatever you're making to make it feel more accurate, okay? So I'm not doing harsh outlining, but I'm putting just little touches of the black charcoal in a couple of other places to show the edges of my objects, okay? These don't have outlines in the actual still life, but I'm just using a little bit of this to show the edges, okay? And what's great about this dirty drawing method is if you erase too much, you put charcoal or pastel back into the drawing. If you have gone too dark, okay, or you need to work on the shape a little bit, you just lift it out with the eraser, okay? You're keeping everything really light. And anytime you put charcoal or later on soft pastel down, you use your fingertips or the paper towel to just gently blend it in. And if you are going to use any Q-tips, the Q-tips are great for any little edges or lines that you need to blend, okay? Or any little small spaces, all right? But this is optional, okay? So I'm going to work on this further, and the next film will be a little bit more into, after the charcoal is added, how to start putting some of the soft pastel into this, okay?